Okay. Hi, everyone. And today we're here with Bonolo Kavula to continue this cycle of quick conversations with the artists of surroundings, the first exhibition of Satellite Florence. Thank you, Bonolo, for being here and to have a chat with me about your works and your art. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good, thanks. It's a Friday evening. It's pretty chilled,
Yeah,
home alone, but relaxed. I'm making art, so it's just another ordinary day. Yeah,
perfect. The
but
perfect
happy to be.
Thank you. And the perfect date for an interview.
Exactly, exactly.
So let's start talking about your studies. You now currently live and work in South Africa, and you were
Mhm.
born in Kimberley. Now you work in Cape Town. You
Yes.
graduated in printmaking at the University of Cape Town 6 years ago. And wanted to ask you, how did your art and your vision develop since then? And which artist movement has inspired your work?
Sure. So, well, I was graduated in 2014, and I always hate to say this, but unfortunately, that is the source of my inspiration.
Mhm.
But about 3 years into studying art, I, looked a lot at conceptual art, but art, from like white male artists in the 60s in America.
Mhm.
I guess I thought that was like what, they modeled what art was and what conceptual art was. So I looked at like Robert Rauschenberg, Frank Stella, very, very old school. Agnes Martin is someone I completely look up to, just as someone who makes beautiful work, but whose work speaks about beauty. It's very philosophical. So I was into that sort of art making, and that's who I was inspired by. But so I've always kept to that sort of minimalist, conceptual way of thinking about art and art materials. For me, making art is like a creative science.
Mhm.
Um, so it's always like, gotta have it, it's got to be perfect. I mean, I'm still working with the same visual language I used in university, and I'm just always improving and finding ways to make it even more sophisticated, um, more complex, but also more visually interesting. So even at age 50, God willing, if I make it to age 50, I'll still be using the same visual language I discovered when I was a student. And I think that was the height of my creativity, was when I was, trying to, when I was really studying and learning, and I wanted to find that thing, and
Mhm.
I found it. So now it's my blueprint. I just work with, um, so when I say visual language, I have these canvas discs that I work with, like these circles and
Mhm.
lines and the styrofoam and old, like magazine paper and cardboard. So that'll always be that is my blueprint, my signature. But I did it at like the peak of my, I mean, when I really, I still love art, but I think when you studying and you're in university and you're around other students, you really push to find that thing. So yeah, that's what I'm working with, and I'm still working with it 6 years later.
Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much. It's really interesting also that you play and work with different mediums, video, performance, printmaking.
Yes.
And this last technique allows you to create a unique visual language. Using,
Hmm.
in fact, unconventional materials, you are able to arrive at a remarkable, abstract, visive and work visual language.
Yes.
Uh, Tell me about it. How do you use it, and what do you want to achieve with it?
Mm, that's a good question. So I'm busy preparing for an exhibition.
Mhm.
Um, with Smack Gallery. They've invited me to have a little show in one of their artist rooms. So while I'm busy making my art, it's time consuming because it's like laborious, it's repetitive, but it's also about technique. you know.
Yeah.
And I just had such a hard time. Like some days I couldn't, even waking up, I thought, oh my God, I have to do the same thing again and again every day. And it really pushed me to ask myself, why am I doing this? Because it really, what is the point in, doing something that is repetitive? But then I went on this like existential crisis thing mode. And I then started to, you know, I thought, well, I think I'm doing the same thing. It's like art imitating nature.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think of the sun, for instance, and the sun does its thing, it rises and it sets. But in some odd moment, somebody at the beach is going to be looking at the sunset, and in that little moment, they're going to think, "Oh my God, my life makes sense. This is beautiful," and it just really speaks to their soul. But it's just in that moment. But
Mm-hmm.
the sun is just being a sun; it's just rising and setting.
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment, there's someone who's really having this connection with it. And I thought, I want to create that moment with my artwork. So the art doesn't say anything. It's not about identity politics. It's not really saying anything about anything. But I do want it to be, I wanted to arrest you. Like if you look at it, it really must just hold you in that moment. Forget about life. You shouldn't resonate with anything but what's in front of you. And I think that's what my interpretation of beauty is, being really caught up in the moment of what you're seeing and just accepting that object for what it is and nothing less, nothing more. So
Mm-hmm.
my artwork really, I strive to make beautiful objects, first of all. I think art is also, we forget that art is like a design. It's an exercise also of like design and making beautiful things. I like beautiful things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you buy, the difference between like a Samsung and an Apple,
Mm-hmm.
like an iPhone. I think Samsung is better, but the experience of buying an iPhone and unpackaging it, it's like, wow, you can
Magic.
feel rich. You're like, oh my God, this is
Mm-hmm.
so, but the Samsung is better. So with my art, I want people to have like an iPhone unpackaging experience of it. It's just an artwork like any other. But the whole point is to really, and this is outside of art, like to strive to commit to something, make it beautiful, because art is going to outlive all of us. And it's the one thing, if someone doesn't ever get to meet me or know about me and they see my art, it's the closest thing they'll get to know of me. And I want it to be beautiful.
Okay.
So it's also really just speaking to people. Like it's a language of the heart. That's I want to, yeah. I just want to make beautiful things. I think there's nothing wrong with being design focused and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and also in your work exhibited in Surroundings,
Yes.
titled "The Feelings Don't Go Away." It's really impressive how you worked with lino cut printed on bubble gum, so bubble gum wrappers. So talk me about it. Talk me about your work.
So that one, whew, it's got such a long backstory. But I in 2015, I wanted to make this video artwork, and it was based on an idiom that my grandmother, um, used to say. It's kind of rude, but it's a very, like, it's crass, that idiom, but it was funny, and it led me to want to shave the hair off of like a sheep's hoof, but I
Mhm.
couldn't do it. There's a way to do it because it's a delicacy. You eat it, and you eat sheep's hoof and the sheep's head, but you need to shave the hair off first. So I wanted to take a video. I actually did. It was a video artwork of my aunt teaching me how to shave the hair off.
Ah,
So
okay.
now that that video artwork was done, I thought, okay, how do I translate this action into a print?
Mm,
Because yes, it's a 3D action, but I'm always, at the end of the day, I want to think flat, 2D. How do I, it has to be a print at the end of the day. So
mhm,
then I thought about the hairs. I actually drew a sheep's hoof, and I had all these different, like, interpretations of what it could be as a print. And then eventually I thought, okay, hair, instead of actually being literal, let me be abstract about it. And then I thought, okay, what if I had to draw every single piece of hair
mhm,
that I shaved off? So I started sort of making a tally,
mhm,
and then I then made these lines on a I think it was A3 size lino.
mhm,
I made these fine lines and I carved them out, and I thought, here it is. Here is the video
Okay.
existing as a print work. It's all the hair that I shaved off, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then I made the print. So I've made prints with that mat a
Mm-hmm.
few times, and then I started printing. Obviously, I wanted to translate the print on other materials, and I'd done that on magazine paper, and I loved how the text jumped out from the black against the black lino. And I had bubblegum lying around in my studio. So, I mean, the wrapper's bright yellow. So I thought, okay, let's play around with the wrapper. And it worked out so brilliantly. Because if you look at the wrapper, and this is what I like about printing or printing on different materials, it really makes you pay attention to the other material. So it's really about paying attention to the things that you use instead of using it as a, it's not, to get me to make something. There's a reason why you stick with what you use. So anyway, the Chappies wrapper, just the colors, that the yellow, the blues, the reds, such a beautiful thing. So that's where it's always been just an idea. So I printed it on, I printed the lino on the Chappies wrapper, and it was just an idea. So for a couple of years, this idea was just in my studio lying around. And then this year, I had the opportunity to have a solo booth at the art fair. And I thought, here's a perfect opportunity to realize this idea. Because I have a lot of small, ideas like that happen that I kind of store. So most of the work that I make, I present it as new, but I could have had that idea like 6 years ago, or things that I even had as a student. So the Chappies wrapper work that you see at Surroundings is an idea that it was a test that I made in 2015. And then 5 years later, I got a chance to make it. So that's what that is. And it was from a video of me shaving hair, and it just turned into something of its own.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's really interesting, the story behind your work. So I recommend everyone to go and see it now that you know the story behind it. And thank you so much, Bonolo, for being here and for having a chat with me.
Thank you.
Uh, everyone, thank you, and I will see you in the next interviews. Bye. Bye, Bonolo.